Director Padfield, I'd like to discuss your federal spending authority for the COVID disaster relief appropriation. So this past November, it was increased from $200 million to $800 million. It's a significant change. Can you provide any additional details surrounding this change?
Sure. So the spending authority is usually associated with the amount of obligations that we have. So we work with the federal government on that. So we are looking at totality since the beginning of the disaster, if I remember correctly, about $1.7 billion of public assistance that is being returned to eligible applicants across the state. So that is a sliding scale with where we're at in that disaster right now. As projects close out, we need less spending authority. Obviously, as projects continue, we need to have more spending authority associated with that.
And it appears through the Commonwealth's accounting system that those funds are still being distributed.
Yes, correct. That we have four, actually, it's hard to believe, we have four active open disasters going back as far as 2018 right now.
Okay. Can you give us any additional details on the timing of those awards with those dollars?
That's a great question. I know that's a frustrating point with a lot of the eligible applicants right now. Specifically, the healthcare community, they're going through a RAND review process. So a lot of the healthcare applicants have to go through a review before those funds, and they're really looking at duplication of benefits. That's really outside of our control from an agency perspective. That's really run by RAND and DHS and FEMA at this point in time. But we've been working with the applicants if they have questions to try to see what we can do from our perspective to hasten their obligations and them recouping their funds that they expect.
That RAND process makes the determination on who the eligible recipients of those dollars would be.
It is an eligible applicant, so they already have a project in, and then what they do is they take a look at, because of the amount of money that was available during COVID through different avenues, they really are taking a look at a duplication of benefits to make sure that there's no duplication of benefits. Once they go through that process, then they will go ahead and obligate those funds. So that's what's taking a little long.
Very good. You know, a lot of those federal COVID dollars came with very specific timelines for using those dollars. There was a whole host of different funding streams. So do you believe that the Commonwealth still has the federal authority to distribute those dollars related to COVID relief?
At this point in time, we're not seeing anything that would lead us to believe that we don't. We know that many of those projects are in place right now and working through the process. So we continue to monitor that. And the public assistance program is a reimbursement process. So they've already expended those funds. So these are eligible projects that we're working with the applicants on.
Very good. Thank you for that. And if I may, our colleague, Senator Dush, has not been able to join us today, but asked if I could speak with you with regard to policies and procedures that PEMA has in place for the timely notification of elected officials regarding emergencies, particularly in their districts, and any meetings with regard to incidents. Can you speak to that?
Sure. So, notifications of public officials usually works through our Legislative Affairs Office. Our primary conduit for providing information is usually through our emergency management coordinators. They're our first, avenue to be able to provide that information. Right. There are maybe a number of meetings associated with any disaster, depending on where we're at and what we're doing. So those, that information is going to go out through our Legislative Affairs.
I appreciate that. And I know in an earlier response you indicated that these things are awfully highly localized and of course devastating to the community. And of course you need to communicate with those first responders immediately, the folks on the ground who are actually responding to an incident. But I know that there was a concern with regard to Tropical Storm Debbie in that district and getting notice of a meeting 15 minutes prior to that meeting. How often do you update those contact lists for legislators?
So I think what you're referring to, or what Senator Dush is referring to, is an outreach program and a workshop that we had planned, and we had provided information. It was specifically for floodplain administrators to be able to talk about management within the floodplain. And one of the challenges that we run into is the vast majority of the communities, we pulled information for about the 13 counties that were impacted that received a public assistance disaster declaration. A high number of those communities are not current with their actual NFIP NFIP, or National Flood Insurance Program reporting, annual reporting. So if we haven't received a report from them in a number of years, we may not have the most updated contact information.
And I will certainly share this information with Senator Dush. I would just say that as legislators, we keep track. I have over 52 municipalities. I can get you in touch with whoever you need to be in touch with. And I would assume that most of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle are similarly situated. We'd be happy to assist to make sure our communities get the best information in a timely fashion that they can. Director Padfield, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.